Hello, Old World. This is Keith with an analysis of the Empire. I've been playing since 2004. Have had a really good time. I was really excited to hear that Old World has come back, brought all these neat armies back to the tabletop. I brought up all my models from storage. Realized most of them are gone, unfortunately, but it gave me a chance to start an Everland army, so black and yellow. I like the contrast there. So pretty excited about that. But as far as that, what I did definitely was I have been looking at a lot of battles, a lot of battle reports, watching a lot of games. I played a couple with other people's armies while I've been making mine, so I have a pretty good understanding of how the Empire rules are right now. And I generally speaking, the Empire army has always been a harder army to play with. And I feel like the Old World has definitely nerfed them to potentially the worst army. And I do find it a little frustrating, just because I never found Empire to be like an overpowered army. I always considered them to be a very careful army that you need to make if you want to be competitive. So we'll start. Well, I want to do a video for each character's core, special, and rare. This video will concentrate on the core, because core is always going to be fabric of any army, and the fabric of the Empire army is always going to be defined by their state troops. And one thing I could definitely say is I could tell that the Old World was trying to make their leadership better with rerolls. However, they lack the focus of making those abilities do well with the leadership that they've already been given. So they kind of averaged out all their stats. They're all like average, weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, leadership. I think that they should have actually considered putting more leadership, maybe even as good as a dwarf leadership with the Empire. And why do I say that? I feel like that the Empire in lore has been one of those that have always been able to overcome the odds, um, against overwhelming odds, like forces always trying to get them. And there's almost like a religious zeal to them when they're fighting. And I feel like if they're going to average out their stats like that, which I can totally understand, there needs to be something that sticks out, something that really holds the line. And re-rolling these terrible leaderships really don't make a difference. I've seen so many battles now. I can really tell you that the state troops are suffering terribly. People are trying their hardest to make it happen, and I'm sure like everyone who's seen this video has seen this same situation happen. You put a big block of state troops, you put a priest, a BSB, and a general in there, and it lasts maybe a couple turns, maybe three, and then it gets overrun. You're not able to give tax back because you're always going last. You're probably getting charged. You're losing too many wounds to really hit back, and when you are, it's not making a difference because you're getting a couple kills here and there. You're just not able to match up with the wounds that the opposing player is giving. So that is frustrating. There was an idea behind having priests, generals, and BSBs there, but it's not doing it. Now I do have some suggestions of how they should be able to do the Empire troops. I don't know if they ever will do it. I think there's a couple things they could go back to help them out. But one thing is definitely killing them, and most core troops in general, is the fact that troops are dying before they can attack, or there's too many wounds being applied to that unit before they can attack. Before, step up was something that they could be used. So basically, if one troop died, another troop moved into his place and could fight back, or fighting in two ranks, and with spears maybe three. And I think something like that has to come back, or else it's just these troops these units are just a waste of points, especially when you're considering that you're basically feeding the other army wounds, and then when you get overwhelmed with those big blocks of units, you're losing a 400 point unit, not to mention the characters in it, the BSB, giving them a banner, maybe two banners, and it's not a recipe for success. Now, what do I think the Empire unit needs to really be lore friendly and also playable against other armies? I do feel like they should be more expensive because they are not an they're a trained unit. They're trained more than other units in the fantasy world. They're paid and they work every 24/7 basically, drilling. So what I think that should encapsulate is better weapon skill, better ballistic skill, and better leadership, even if it's just one. And again, more expensive. I also feel like their armor should be better. And I don't know if this, maybe I could do a separate video about more, maybe having a medium armor there, just so that there is some kind of middle unit between the crappy units and the great units, because there's no in between right now. Even great swords, which you would think on paper look great, they're just not good. They're not good. They're almost considered crappy in my opinion. And I'll tell you why when we do the special video, but you're just not going to get any fights back. You're not going to get any fighting back with a great swords unit. But I think that the had more skill into your troops, better weapons, especially the halberds. I feel like the halberds have been really underwhelmed compared to the other ones, just because I feel like Bretonia for the point cost, and also the Marauders for chaos, they're giving them special weapons and being very cheap about, letting them be really cheap about it. The halberds with the Empire are very underwhelming, considering the Empire have a better forge lore-wise than other units. I feel like they really need to do more with it, and I don't really know what to say. I don't know if it's more initiative and strength and armor penetration, but there needs to be something that kind of highlights them, that weapon with the Empire, and I think that's the one. I also think that spears in general should do something more for the unit, because I mean, just generally speaking, the spearman unit throughout the ages has been a predominant force in the field. Like, you wouldn't charge a unit of spearmen. In fantasy, you can do that and get away with it, and just kill the whole thing. I don't think that's right, but again, that's more for a different video. Now, for the state troops, the other thing I think that needs to be done is the detachments. I think that they need to figure out better mechanics for them, because they're just not doing their job. I think most players are ready for the counter charge, the counter shooting phase. It's just not, unless you're like not used to the game, you're not going to fall for that trap. And I think that a couple things that they can do to make this better is they can increase the range of your detachment, their ability to function as a detachment. I think that the parent unit should be able to counter, to help a detachment. I think right now, for example, if your detachment gets charged, you can't counter charge. I think that the parent unit should be allowed to do that. In fact, it would be really silly to think that they're able to do that to the parent unit and have the detachment charge, but not vice versa. I feel like you wouldn't want to charge a detachment, because you'd be completely screwed, you know what I mean? And then secondly, I think this would be a kind of neat element to it if they did something more like a surprise element to it, like Fanatics with goblins, where you charge a parent unit and all of a sudden you get shot with handgunners. I think that would be kind of interesting, because it's unexpected, but it is something where, like, I would feel like detachments really for Empire would work more like that, where you put the shooters in front, they shoot, they go back, and spearmen go. That to me sounds more like a realistic approach of how Empire troops should function, and not really be taking space in the front, like going on the sides. Because right now, the way the detachments work, you basically have to put them right next to the unit for them to function. Rarely will you have a hill in the back to work perfectly, but I think that the surprise element to it would be kind of neat. You don't have to tell them, or you could just put the handgunners there and just have them go back, and not act like a flea, because I think the fleeing thing is kind of something where I would not I would not really like that. And then lastly, for the core are the knights. Now we'll talk about the militia in just a little bit. They're a fun unit. I think they can do more with them. Right now, they really are more of a detachment. I like the fact that they put some kind of shooting thing to them, but their leadership is just like lackluster as heck, and there's no real way to increase that. And I feel like they should have special characters or allow generals and captains to have more ability to have the unit last longer with their leadership. Right now, I just feel like they're, again, very lackluster, no armor, no real neat weapons. And I think that with the Forge, you know, the Empire Forge, having halberds do more than what they're doing, and even having units with pistols, and we'll go to special, I think pistoliers, I was thinking more about pistoliers, but militia, if they had the ability to use pistols, I think having a strength 4 weapon with an AP, I think that's kind of neat. And that's definitely something that would give some more flavor to the Empire. And it wouldn't make them overpowered. It really wouldn't, because they're really bad right now. You just have to breathe on Empire troops. Any type of Empire troop, they will fall. But let's go to Knights. So Knights is my favorite unit. I actually run an Empire, a Knight army. I really just have my core troops there for looks. I like the spearmen, I like the swordsmen, but the Knights are the cream of my crop. And when I played them, we used to have inner circle Knights as core, and that was very important, especially with their 1 armor saves. Now it's not even possible to have a 1 armor save. Now they have 3. They could be 4 if you choose the wrong weapon. And I don't really buy it that many people think it would be overpowered, but I think it should be back to what it used to be with Inner Circle Knights, because really that was the only unit in the game, in the Empire list, that could hold its own for a couple turns, or for a few turns. Primarily because the 1 armor save allows them to stay in the fight. They don't have after the charge, they really don't have any extra crazy strength or power to inflict so many wounds that the other player would be afraid of them. That's just not there. And I think that if you really are afraid of that, then you're just BSing. The Inner Circle Knights are good at, and any knight is going to be good at the charge, but it's really, in terms of like how they're lasting in combat, is really what I'm looking at. Because we just don't have a unit that's there that can really hold the ground. And I think the Inner Circle Knights should be the answer to that. Right now, they've made it impossible to use Inner Circle Knights, because I mean, they're special, and when you go to special, there's just so many other units you're gonna use. It's really hard for me to believe that you wouldn't invest in demigryph knights instead, or cannons. You know, with all the abilities there, it just doesn't make any sense to invest in Inner Circle Knights. They really should do what they did before, and I do fear that what they did is they had players like me who use the Inner Circle dynamic to have like 2 units in the game, because before it was 0 to 1 per 1,000. So usually, you know, you play a 2,000 point list, and you would have 2 strong units be able to hold out their own for a while your other units are able to do what they need to do. And I think that whoever set this up, because I feel like a lot of things have been debuffed for Empire. It's not that they were not dealt, or they weren't handled well. I feel like they were debuffed, and I'm taking this a little bit personal, because it's like we really don't have anything to hold the line. And the Inner Circle Knights were really the one thing that could have done that. Again, they took away the 1+ save, so we can't do that. It's a 3+ save, so you know. Again, I get a lot of pushback from other players from when I say that, but it's like, give Empire a break. You're not going to have that many knights in general, so you need that strength 4 from Inner Circle to cause a couple more wounds for really combat resolution, just so that you can continue to at least try to even it out. So that's why I think the strength 4 is important. But and then there's another thing, like there's a couple other things I thought that the Empire Knights should have. I was really surprised that they were given heavy armor. Just heavy armor for regular knights. I think they should have the availability to do full plate. Again, it's a very weak unit. It really, besides for the charge, it's a weak unit. It's a 3+ armor save with a strength 3 attack. They definitely need more. I never ran in all my years my knight list, which was pretty decent. I never ran regular knights around as a regular core choice, hoping they were going to hold the line. I would always run them around like in lower numbers to potentially attack the flanks, try to go around the enemy. But you would never use that to hold your force because it was so unreliable. You had, even now, you have a lot of units that can penetrate armor. So once you have those units who can penetrate armor, which pretty much every unit, every army has, what good are the knights? They don't have that many attacks, really. So I don't think there should not be that much pushback about having inner circle knights back. So full plate armor I thought was very important. I think that you should have the ability to upgrade your knights to full plated armor. It gives them something to kind of have them stick out from other knights. And then lastly, and this goes back to the Empire Forge, I feel like they should have some kind of weapon like a Warhammer. The Knights of the White Wolf had this, where it'd be +2 strength on the charge and +1 after. So basically, if they were strength 5, or if they were strength 3, they would be strength 5 in the charge, and then strength 1 after. It was an interesting weapon because it was basically like you would go in an initiative order, but you wouldn't be able to carry a shield, or you couldn't use it at the same turn as combat. So I thought that's a unique weapon. It's a way for the player to think and kind of use his army more effectively, or kind of measure how that's going to be effective in their army. Because that's a neat thing to use, and I'm really disappointed they took it out. Right now they have great weapons, and it's a very odd thing to have. You're forcing Empire players to lower their armor even more after you've done that, and have them even go last. So not only are they not getting the wounds, they'll be happy to get 1 wound basically, and that's basically what great weapon knights have been dealing with. I mean, I've tried it a lot. Me and my friends have been trying to find some kind of effectiveness with great weapons. It's not effective to have them attack, especially after the first round, because they're losing models. They're probably hitting half the time, and of course, Empire players tend to be more unlucky than most, and they'll probably, there are times they don't get anything in. And I've seen so many battle reports now, it's crazy. Now, as far as that, I think one thing that definitely made the old world comeback was Total War. So I will say this, I think that they could incorporate a lot of neat things from the Total War game and try to put them in this game. Again, even Halberds, I feel like in Total War did more, or had more of an impact in the game than they are right now. The debuffs to the Empire, I just don't get it, including the cannons. And again, we'll get to it when we go to the special. Having the armor, for example, lessen on the knights, it's like they definitely, it seemed like they really didn't want people to enjoy an Empire list. And maybe it's because Bretonnia became the new main army. Maybe that's it. But there's so many neat things you could do with Empire, and I hope when they come back out that they're able to do something with the rules and new models if they have any new ones. But the last thing I wanted to mention is that I think there is some kind of thing they could do with the knights, which they kind of did before with the White Wolf, but basically make a 0 to 1 list for certain knight orders, like White Wolf, Knight Panther, Reichsguard, Blazing Sun. I think that each of those units could have special abilities that a regular knight unit didn't have, like special. Like, for example, I think Knights of the Blazing Sun in Warhammer Total War had flaming attacks. It's a very neat thing. The White Wolf, you know, maybe they're the ones that have that special weapon, the Warhammer, and so forth and so forth. I think that's a neat aspect that I hope that they kind of incorporate into the Arcane Journal for Empire next year. But we'll see, and we'll go over the other ones in another video. But that is what I thought about the Empire core right now. I think that, again, they need to make Empire core more of a middle ground army, and not just a poor choice for core. I don't think there's another choice for that core unit that performs worse. The Beastmen, for example, they get Frenzy for free. The orcs, the average orc is going to have toughness 4, and virtually the same cost. That's crazy. That's crazy. And the Empire troop has no chance against those units. And the question is, why is that? You know, it's like there's no real rule that's helping them get better. Anyway, my thoughts to the video. Tell me what you folks think. What do you think in terms of the core units that we have right now? Could they do better with, especially specifics? What do you think in terms of even the weapons or the rules? Do you think they could change to make the game for Empire a little bit at least competitive?